Kingdom of Honor. I'm your host, the Honorable Zanman, Shane Sabunia. I'm not the Honorable One. He's the Honorable One. Jeff, I just totally screwed it up.
I
That's
was gonna
okay.
say, when did you become honorable?
Oh, I'm fucking not, dude.
Oh, all right, fair enough.
I'll have anybody in the back, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm right there with you this week.
All right, there you go. So we're here to talk about the night two of Rebellion. And Jeff, I have to tell you, I think I barely liked night two better than I liked night one, but neither one of them were great to me.
I liked the matches in night two so much better. Um, I hated Madison Rain this week, which really annoyed me because I thought she was so great last week, and this week I really, really hated it.
Well, I can never hate Madison Rain. Why did you hate her?
She didn't have the same snappy barbs and the same. I mean, she just played. I know you like to use this reference for any time there's a generic baby face or a generic heel, but to me, she felt like heel announcer number 34.
Really?
Yeah, she didn't have, there wasn't the making fun of Josh. Josh was making fun of himself. Like the whole thing with the soybean burger and the, all that stuff. It seemed more like Josh was making fun of himself this time than having Madison or Don Callis making fun of him. And
He
it
stole her
just,
thunder.
what's that?
He stole her thunder.
Yeah, almost. It seemed more like this episode. He made himself the Mauro Ranallo focal point, where everything was about Josh Matthews and not so much letting Madison Rain tell her side, and he didn't let the matches speak, and there were so many things that throughout the night that just annoyed me. Like his whole, I mean, the way he kept talking about TNA originals constantly throughout the show, and then when you look back when you got to the final, you realized why. He was trying to foreshadow the main event, but in all reality, all he did was make himself sound like an idiot. And then during that main event, he kept talking about how, oh, they've been in the ring a long time. They've been in the ring a long time, and I think he said that like 5 times throughout that match.
Yeah. You know what one of the things that bugs me the most about I think about Josh Matthews is he's always I cannot wait for this. He can never
Right.
be in the moment. It's always even Rebellion Night 1, it was I cannot wait for Rebellion Night 2. It's like, dude.
Well, and he said that to close out the show. I can't wait till next week to
Yeah.
see what happens. And it's like we talked a lot last week about why didn't Moose get a shot? Why didn't Moose get a shot? And I never really saw the way that it worked out. I just saw the headlines, and I didn't watch the match. I didn't look at anything. I didn't until I watched it. I knew the result that Moose had won, and Moose was the new heavyweight champion. I didn't realize he was the TNA heavyweight champion, and the fact that Josh spent the entire main event downplaying that he's not, whoever wins this match is not a champion, and Moose is not a champion, and all this stuff, it just really took a lot of the thunder away from a guy like Moose, who we both agreed last week deserved a title run. It kind of took a thunder away from him and made it really seem like, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah, he definitely deserves a title run. I thought he hasn't really been built to that to this point, but the thing is this is almost like a more legitimate version of what Matt Taven was doing last year.
Right.
You know, it's more legitimate in the sense that there is no Impact champion around right now. Moose has been rolling over all of the TNA stars he's faced. He has, they just brought TNA back a couple of weeks before that for a one night return thing and brought the championship to that show along with it. So I mean, it's kind of a cool thing where like Moose is saying he's the TNA world champion. There is no Impact world champion, so for all intents and purposes, he's the only world champion on the show.
Oh, I'm not saying anything
And
about that. I
and and
absolutely.
and and I think it's going to be a nice build to when he faces off against Tessa Blanchard to decide who really is the world champion.
I absolutely love the storyline. I think it's an incredible storyline. It's one that we really haven't seen. And when Matt Taven did it, he had legitimate gripes. Like, he had beaten Jay Lethal, he had beaten Marty Skrull, he had beaten all these contenders and the champion. So for him running around saying, I'm the real world's champion, that made sense. With Moose, the storyline build, I mean, the fact that, like you said, he's been running through TNA originals, up one side and down the other, and destroying them all, and positioning himself, and the fact that he took the championship and declared himself the champion, I was okay with, and then he went out there and he earned the match. I have no problem with him being a secondary. Not, I don't want to call it a secondary, but a title holder, a disputed title holder like that. I have absolutely no problem with it, and I love the storyline. And if they pull this off right, it's going to be a great storyline when they finally come together and unite the championships. Um, my whole issue with it was the fact that it was downplayed through the entire match. I mean, it was.
But that's what's going to happen with the babyface especially, or and probably even with the heel. They're going to be like, you know what? He's calling himself the champion, but he's not really the champion.
Well,
You know, and
Madison Rain, I felt like did a great job with that, where she kept saying he carries himself like a champion, he acts like a champion. There's no problem calling him a champion. I liked the way that Madison Rain portrayed it as the perfect heel announcer, but I think that Josh really overdid it with the constants. Like, every chance he got, he had to remind us that Moose stole that belt. And I felt like at some point, even if as a face announcer, and the face announcers do that occasionally, where they'll give props to the heel, saying, "Yeah, he's done a great job. He's put himself in this position, that position, but ultimately, because he's a heel, they can't um, get behind his antics, but they do still put him over." Jim Ross did that for years with people, like The Rock. When The Rock was the corporate champion, he would do that all the time, talking about how he doesn't like his attitude, but ultimately he's the champion. He beat this guy and beat that guy to prove it, and so on. And I felt like Josh just spent more time not only running down Moose, but running down the championship, that it took away any kind of power that title could have had.
I think he's just doing his. I think he's just playing the counterpoint. Like, there's. I didn't feel that way. I guess just I didn't expect him to sell it as legitimate. I mean, I expected him to be against Moose claiming he was the champion, or anybody claiming that they were the champion that wasn't Tessa Blanchard. I mean, we talked about this, and we talked about this last week. How we feel like, at least I feel like, and I think you were on the same board, that Tessa's become a lame duck champion,
Yeah, she
and
really
it was
has.
time. And it was time for her to lose that championship. I really wanted Michael Elgin to get the world championship, but it wouldn't have felt right for him to get it in this spot with Tessa not there to lose it to him. So I really liked the direction that they went. I liked the fact that Josh is playing it off as not real, because it's not an official Impact Championship, but there's nothing saying that a heel guy, especially a guy like Moose, who thinks he's the greatest thing wrestler in the history of the world, who thinks he's better than anybody that ever existed, who thinks he's a legend when he's not, would be the guy going out there claiming to be the TNA World Champion when the Impact World Championship isn't there. I just hope that they build it at some point to something like we saw at Vengeance 2003, where it ends up being like a four-person mini tournament to decide who the actual world champion is, or like they did earlier this year, I suppose at Wrestle Kingdom even.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind having to be honest, I wouldn't mind having a CM Punk John Cena type payoff, where the two actually at some point collide. I just want it to breathe a little bit more, and I want it to feel like Moose is a legitimate champion. Like, I get the fact that he's playing it down. He called himself the champ. He's not the champ, and whatever. I get all that, but at some point, a little bit of credibility to the accomplishments that Moose has had would have gone a long way, and he could have played the babyface unapproving, I don't like the way that he just stole the championship and then called himself the champion. But after this match, he went out against the number one contender, and I'm not really sure why they threw Hernandez in there, but whatever. He went out and beat two top guys to get that title, or to retain his championship.
They
So
threw Hernandez out there so Michael Elgin wouldn't have to lose the match.
yeah, that's a good point. So he could still have legitimate claim to the world title.
Right.
But ultimately he went out there and he won a three-way against two formidable guys. Two guys that we've been saying for, we said that it was embarrassing that Hernandez didn't win a title his first round in TNA. So I really was hoping for a little bit more legitimacy to it. And he could have been legit.
Well, and we probably still have months of this going on for him to establish that legitimacy. I mean, it's probably something where it's going to grow over time. Like, he keeps on defending this title, he doesn't lose it. I mean, it's hard, and like having a grudging respect for Moose by the time that Tessa comes back.
I would like to see him in a program with Elgin right now, where Elgin tries to go out and prove to him that he's not the real champion, and he's going to take the belt to prove that he's going after the real belt or whatever, and lose a couple of matches to Moose. I think that would legitimize the belt a lot more.
Yeah, but can Elgin afford those losses is the question.
I think he can. I think in the current environment, everything is a little forgiving, especially when you're going up against a guy who's been a top-level star for quite a few years. Him losing to Moose isn't as painful as him losing to Ace Austin.
I still have no idea what the hell they were thinking last year. I mean, I have not agreed with the booking for that World Championship. Over most of the last couple of years, I really do not understand Elgin not beating Brian Cage for that championship. What did Cage wrestle, like 5 more matches for an Impact after that?
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, it's just, and he had not wrestled for 2 months prior to that, so that was still as a major head scratcher for me.
Yeah, it didn't make much sense to me either. But it's not like we've gotten we didn't get anything out of Sammy. He only had 2 matches.
Yeah, I think he and Tessa have each defended it once each, twice each.
And one of Tessa's defenses was against Taya Valkyrie.
Yeah, she defended against Taya and she defended against Ace Austin, I think. So I think those are her 2 defenses.
Right. Did she defend it against Ace Austin? I thought that was just a. I thought
that was. Oh no, that was a non-title match, wasn't it? That's right. It was a non-title match, and then she wrestled for his X Division title. So no, I think
right.
I think Taya is her only defense so far.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I felt like the matches themselves were better than last week, but ultimately, I wasn't overly impressed. I do enjoy the fact that outside of the Sammy Ken Shamrock thing, they didn't really go into too much that needed to pop a crowd or was overly produced. I mean, the Full Metal Mayhem match, that there wasn't any really high spots that needed a crowd to react in order to make it special.
What I loved the fact that somebody got hit with a pipe in the head and actually got hit. Because that's what should happen if you get hit with a pipe in the head.
That was entertaining. And then they one negative that I really had that I thought was, why did they show? I mean, I know Impact is known for their retro matches. They usually have 2 or 3 matches, maybe 4, in a regular Impact show, and then they throw a retro match in. Why did they do that in what was considered a special show? That made no sense to me.
They had a retro match in there? What retro match did they have in there?
Sami Callihan versus Rich Swann.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it wasn't like they
That's
went
right, they
back
did.
to the.
I always fast forward through those, so I just forgot it. I forgot it was in there.
I mean, it wasn't like they went back to the 2008, 2009, and we heard Mike Tenay and Don West commenting on an AJ Styles match. It was, it was Don Callis and Josh Matthews, and it was a match that happened last year, but it was still a retro match that they went to. And I just don't understand where the thought process was in that. It's like, here's night 2 of what's supposed to be your big Grand Slam hit of the virus. I mean, this is them going on par with WrestleMania and with Wrestle Kingdom and all this stuff, and they put that in there. It didn't make sense to me why that decision was made.
Well, they showed that like right before they did the interview with Rich Swann and Willie Mack, right? So I think that was probably just to hype up Rich Swann a little bit. I'm not really exactly sure.
Unless this is leading to a Rich Swann versus Willie Mack feud, I don't care.
Even if it is, I don't care because it's been building for too long.
And it's Rich Swann versus Willie Mack.
And it's flat as hell.
I mean, and Johnny Swinger, why is Johnny Swinger becoming a part of this? What role is he going to play in all this? Is he going to be the one that breaks him up? It's just this slow burn heel turn by Rich Swann has gone on for about a year now.
Something like that. I'm not sure if I've ever told you before, but I can't stand Johnny Swinger.
Oh, yeah, I know, I understand, I agree. I'm also not a fan of Willie Mack, so it's just a dead. And to be honest, I've never really been a fan of Rich Swann. With the exception of his heel turn in MLW, I've never really found Rich Swann interesting.
No, I think he and Willie Mack are both very talented in the ring, but I think that their characters are awful.
Yeah, they really are. And I'll never.
And go ahead.
And I'll never, disagree just because I don't like somebody's character or I don't see anything special with them. I'll never deny their talent in the ring.
And speaking of things that fell flat or things that were done very badly, what the fuck was the point of that chick being out there during the Havoc versus Rosemary match?
And what was the point of Josh and Madison arguing about it? She kept saying, right, I know who that is. Well, fucking tell us then. Why did you say I know who that is 14 times in a row with Josh not saying anything, but then you still don't tell us who she is?
Yeah. Her name is Nevaeh, but I'm not going to tell you anything else about her.
And it's not like, I mean, I could understand if it was Sasha Banks or something. Someone that's a real impact player coming in, but this is somebody that I've never heard of before.
Yeah, at first when she said, I know who that is, that's Nevaeh, I thought at a quick glance, I thought it was Victoria.
That's who I thought at first too.
But that would have made it was not her. I have no idea who the hell it is. And so it was like, and she didn't do anything. And she didn't say anything herself. So that whole thing was just ridiculous. There was absolutely no reason for it whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, if she wasn't going to get involved in the match or she wasn't going to cut a promo or something, Madison should have told us who the hell she is.
Yeah, and she was like, "Oh, Havoc's noticed her. Havoc knows who she is." Well, fucking good for Havoc.
Right. I still don't. I have no clue who she is. And like you said, I mean, when I first got a glance, I was like, "Oh, that's Victoria." And that would have made sense because Madison and Victoria, they have a history. They were partners back when Madison first broke away from the Beautiful People and everything. It made sense. But then when I realized it wasn't Victoria, it's just like, okay, this is just dumb. Why is this happening?
Yeah, it is really, really stupid.
It's gotten to a point where I don't want to blame the writers for booking badly or writing badly. I think whoever is in charge of creative is really having an issue trying to duplicate the late 90s success of multiple overlaying storylines. And I think they're trying way too hard and really overbooking simplistic ideas. I think ultimately that's what the problem is.
You and I talked either last week or the week before on Dynamite After Dark about how everything in Dynamite feels like a shared universe. Everything in AEW feels like it rolls into everything else.
Right.
Nothing on Impact feels that way.
No.
I mean, everything feels segmented. Like when you see the Rascals come out there, and then you see OVE come out there, and then like the next match you see uh, Rajit come out there, or or somebody like that. Then none of that feels like it's happening on the same show
That
or in
yeah,
the same company.
that four-way match really had no continuity to it. There was nothing in there that made me think any of those guys really disliked anybody else except for the fact that this guy's a heel and this guy's a face.
Yeah, that's very true. But what that match do for the first time ever though is it maybe appreciative of Rohit Raju's talent.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah, he's really shined through in this match to me.
I felt like as much as you and I have talked before about Trey and Dez about how they're the two highlights and both of them we can see as future superstars. This is the first time I looked at Rajit Rahu and was like, hell yeah, this guy has superstar written all over him.
Yeah, he really does. I think he's just getting a little bit more experience, and he'll be right up there with them. Because I looked at that match, and I was like, "What the fuck is Raheem Raju doing in this match?"
Right.
And then by the time it was over, I was like, he was the star of the match.
He was definitely the glue, and I don't know who this other guy was, the guy that actually won. What was his name?
Chris Bay.
Who is he? I've never heard of him before. Never. I know nothing about this guy. It just his theme music makes me want to cry. I don't want to. I think AJ Styles is the only guy on the planet that can get away with a slow rap song as a theme, as an intro music. Everybody else, you want to have that upbeat, high octane, getting you fired up. And this guy's theme music was actually slower than AJ's. Like when AJ had his originally, I kind of questioned it a little bit. His WWE theme, I questioned it, but at the same point, it kind of fits his character. It fits his walk to the ring and his cadence and everything. It fits him, so I'm okay with it. This guy, it didn't fit at all.
Brother, the Briscoes can pull that off too.
Yeah, you're right, the Briscoe. Yeah, but theirs isn't rap music though. Theirs
I know, but
is.
I'm saying if it was, they could pull that off too.
Oh yeah, but
There's very little the Briscoes can't pull off.
there's very few people that can pull off that style of entrance music. Bobby Roode's another one with his glorious theme. He's able to pull it off. But there's very few people that can do it, and I don't think Chris Bay can do it.
Yeah. As far as who he is, he debuted about a month ago on Impact. I think he kind of bounced around the Indies before that, and he was kind of like I guess like oh no, I can't think of his name. But anyway, he's kind of like their latest indie pickup.
He's got some talent, I'll give him that, and maybe he'll grow on me when he develops some personality, like a separating personality. Right now, I think he's just too. I don't want to say he's vanilla babyface, but he is,
He's a heel.
or you know what I mean. But I don't want this to come off racist because you know me, I'm the furthest thing from. But he really has that cool black guy vibe to him. And they're playing that up. And I want him to develop a personality outside of that.
Yeah, I really want him to have some actual time to explain who he is and why we should care about him. Otherwise, all we've seen so far from him have been just a few matches out there. So
And
I mean, I really want him to have more time to expand on his character. He's the ultimate finesser. Okay, so why is he the ultimate finesser? What does that mean? What does he do? Show us
exactly.
him finessing. Don't just say he's the ultimate finesser.
Right,
You know.
exactly. And that maybe get him in an Ace Austin type role. I think he would be great at. Where Ace Austin is trying to you, what was his T-shirt that he had? The "I effed your mother" or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, have him put him in a role like that. I think then we could actually see him shine. But if they're just gonna call him the ultimate, and do what they're doing with him, I don't think that it's gonna work very well.
Yeah, I mean, to me, he should be in some kind of a con man type role, especially with that name, and we haven't seen anything from him like that yet.
No.
He shouldn't be like a slimeball sex guy like Ace Austin. He shouldn't be like a rich guy. He should be somebody he tricks you into doing things. He cons you into doing things. You know,
You know who
and
he would be? The kind of character that I think would be great for him. Remember Shad and JTG?
yeah,
I think that kind of character would be great for him.
without the goofiness though.
Well, no, when they first came out, they weren't goofy. I mean, the Street Profits, they're goofy. They might be funny, but they're goofy. I never felt that about Shad and JTG in the beginning. I mean, towards the end, especially after Shad got fired, JTG kind of went a little off the rails. But in the beginning, I felt like they were like Usos before the Usos. Before the Usos heel turn.
See, and I kind of want him to be a different type of like a guy that actually runs a long con on you or something like that. You know.
Like you could see the Usos doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'd like that too. I think that would work well. And when I text you, when I started watching this, and I was so upset about Josh calling certain people, like when I think of TNA originals, I think of the people that were on the old Asylum shows. I'm not thinking about people that debuted in '09 like Hernandez and Suicide. But what you said made sense because RVD and Rhino, they weren't technically, especially Rhino. I mean, Rhino didn't show up to what, 99, 2000, right before they closed the doors. He's definitely not a TNA or not a ECW original. But it made sense because he was there when he made his name in ECW and so on. And while I can see that with Hernandez, it still annoys me with Suicide. Because all Suicide is a mask. It's not the same guy that debuted as Suicide. Unless you're going to bring Frankie Kazarian back to play Suicide, I don't want to hear him call this TNA original.
Well, that's what kind of confused me about and correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe my memory is just spotty on this, but wasn't the whole idea of Manic was that they didn't want to have Suicide as the name of the character anymore, so they changed it to Manic?
Well, they didn't want to. They didn't want to have it because it wasn't. I mean, Frankie Kazarian made the Suicide character. Yes, it was a video game. Yes, it debuted there. Yes, it came on TV. But if it wasn't for Frankie Kazarian wearing the suit with his athletic ability, it never would have been anything like the video game version. That's what made Suicide so special, is because when you're watching him, it felt like you were playing the video game because Frankie Kazarian was so athletic and so talented. But then when they put it on somebody else, they changed it because it just wasn't the same guy. And I never got that Suicide feeling out of this guy. It's like, okay, it's just a mask.
Right, but I understand what you're saying, but my point was, didn't they change the name of the character of Suicide to Manic at some point?
Yes, they did.
And that's when TJP was under the mask,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. So and yet they were and that's why I thought it was so funny when they were doing the TNA special. They made a big deal of Suicide and Manic teaming together for the first time. It's like, yeah, because they're the same goddamn character, you morons.
Well, and it just when it's not the same
guy. It's the first time ever of HBK teaming up with rocker Shawn Michaels. Well, of course it is. How can it even happen?
Well, it's the same thing like when I can't even think of it. I totally lost my train of thought.
It's the Game teaming up with Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
Wow, that's a stretch. I mean,
It's Terra Rising teaming up with Triple H.
I mean, what if it was Road Dogg teaming up against Jesse James? the roadie, the road dog, and the roadie, or something like that. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It annoyed me because, as far as I'm concerned, you can't just put any Rey Mysterio mask on any wrestler and call him Rey Mysterio, and I feel like that's
Mhm.
what they did with Suicide. You can't do that. He should have been. Yeah, okay, great. It's like bringing Rick Bogner back as Razor Ramon or Glenn Jacobs as Diesel. You just can't do it. If it's
Yeah,
not Frankie Kazarian dressed up in that suit, it's not Suicide, plain and simple.
yeah, fair enough. I don't disagree with it at all. Um, I don't think we need to talk about the other match. To you?
Well, there's two of them. I mean, we didn't really talk much about Rosemary and Havoc.
Um, I just don't think there's a lot of meat on the bone there.
There really wasn't.
I mean,
Outside.
it's there was no reason. I mean, they kind of had to throw this together, so there really wasn't a reason for a lot of these matches on here. I mean, at least the world title match, they were wrestling to see, you know, nominally for who the top contender was going to be for that world championship, but possibly even for Moose's TNA world title that he brought out to the ring with him.
Right.
Um, Rosemary versus Havoc were wrestling because Taya Valkyrie didn't feel like coming to the arena.
The only nice thing we got out of the Rosemary versus Havoc match was the promo beforehand when we got to listen to Jessica Havoc talk. I haven't heard Jessica Havoc talk that much ever.
Yeah,
If you combine every word Jessica Havoc has ever said, I have not heard her talk as much as she did in that opening promo, and she was brilliant. Why don't they let her talk?
I don't know. Maybe they will going forward.
I hope so, because she was really good at it. I was listening to her tell that story before they moved to Rosemary. I was really maybe I was just blown away because it was Jessica Havoc and I wasn't expecting it, but it was enthralling. I enjoyed listening to what she was saying, which is not something I can say about many people cutting promos.
Actually, something else I want to say about this match is I hated the beginning of it. I hated Rosemary pleading with Havoc to not have the match. It did not fit Rosemary's character whatsoever.
Well, and Rosemary constantly talking about how Ty has got a drinking problem, and them constantly bringing that up throughout the match. It's a storyline that just needs to go away. It's not very good.
I like the Rosemary Taya Valkyrie storyline, but I hated the way that it was played into this one, and I hated Rosemary running away from a fight or trying to, or I mean, not literally running away, but trying to verbally talk her way out of it because that's
Yeah.
just not her. That's just not her.
No,
You
she's.
know?
I mean, they even said it on her way to the match that she's the only person other than Havoc to have the kind of body count they have.
Right.
You know.
And Havoc and Sue Young, yeah, and then that spot with the chain was just stupid because again, Rosemary is too cerebral to have done that. She would have climbed outside the ring and pulled the chain on the outside. She would not have done it in the middle of the ring like that.
The other thing that really got me too is when Havoc went to wind up and whip her with the chain. The only thing I kept thinking in my head is that's not going to happen. And maybe it's because I'm an old school wrestling fan, and I've been watching this for years and everything, but they try to protect wrestlers. A whip is one thing, a leather belt is one thing, a um, dog strap is one thing, but a steel chain
Hmm.
that could have, if swung too hard, could have broken Rosemary's back. There was no way that was going to connect. So that spot I didn't buy into even for a second.
Yeah, we've seen that happen with gimmick chains before, but that was clearly not a gimmick chain, and so
No,
yeah, there was no way that was going to happen.
no. And I will say this: you were right about Joseph P. Ryan. I dig him. I like him. I like Joseph P. Ryan. I, I like him much better than the Joey Ryan that was there forever.
Yeah, and I had never had any appreciation whatsoever for what's her name, Katie Forbes, is that her name?
I don't know. I blocked
Rob
her
Van
out of my
Dam's
life.
wife or
Yeah, I blocked
whatever.
her out of my life.
Okay, yeah, I had not any appreciation for her whatsoever until this angle. So
Yeah, I really did. I mean, the storyline with him against the Deaners, whatever, blah blah. But I really enjoyed him as Joseph P. Ryan. That was really entertaining. I like that a lot.
good, yeah. So I guess we'll see where that goes in the future. It's such a weird time to be a wrestler or a wrestling company or even a wrestling fan right now because you just don't know who they're going to have to work with over the next few weeks. I mean, is it only going to be that skeleton crew they had working this pay per view that they're going to have for the next time, however many long they did the tapings for?
I hope not, because they need some more of their talent there. Filibuster for a second. I gotta grab something.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, it's going to be weird if they don't have anybody. I mean, like Eddie Edwards not being around is going to feel very weird. Tessa Blanchard not being around is going to feel very weird. Taya Valkyrie not being around would suck. So it sucked terribly for me. Um, I guess at least Ace Austin is still around. At least Michael Elgin is there. Rosemary, the Rascals. But I mean, the North isn't there, and they're one of the highlights of the show every single week. So I mean, it's very weird, the way that the world is kind of. I mean, and we're all living with it, and it's not the end of the world. I mean, people losing their jobs is obviously more important, and being sick and dying is obviously more important. But it's just as a wrestling fan, it's just weird to, and a wrestling podcaster, it's weird to watch these shows and just wonder like on a week to week basis, like who are they going to have to work with? Um, like this coming week on tomorrow night on Dynamite, it's like Hangman Page has been outspoken about not wrestling it during this pandemic. So um, are they going to have a world tag team title match even at Double or Nothing? Is he going to be around for them to build up to a match? I mean, what are they going to do? So I mean, that's the other thing is like what are they building? What are they going to do for Double or Nothing if they only have the skeleton crew to work with? It's just really really odd. So,
Yeah, it's unfortunately the times we're in, so I think at some point we're gonna have to just accept it. But I don't know that I ever want to. I definitely don't want to pay $50 for a pay per view that has Johnny Peacock in it, or what's that? Johnny Pineapple or Pete Pineapple or whatever his name is.
I was about to say. I mean, I think what they really need to do for this pay per view is they built to build up to a match between Chris Jericho and Pineapple Pete.
Oh, actually, I wouldn't mind that at all. But only if Pineapple Pete gets some run.
Yeah, they need to have a how they used to have like a you remember like there was that one Royal Rumble where it was that weightlifting challenge between the Ultimate Warrior and Ravishing Rick Rude. It needs
No,
to be a flim
thankfully.
flam challenge between um was it, oh I'm sorry it's a pose down. They need to have a flim flam challenge between Pineapple Pete and Chris Jericho.
I would actually pay $50 to watch that. I hate to
Wow,
say
you
it,
must
but
have just have money coming out of your pores right now if that's the case.
I would pay $50 to see a flim flam challenge between Pineapple Pete and Chris Jericho.
Yeah, well, I pay $50 to watch the Exalted One chokeslam Sean Spears off the top of the building.
Speaking of off the top of the building, because I'm pretty sure we're done with this crap. Uh, did you see that Money in the Bank is going to be simultaneous ladder matches?
I did.
Which makes sense because once you see it, you're never going to want to see it again. So if you're going to see the men battle to the top of the building, there's no way in hell I'm going to watch the women do the same thing.
I'm not going to watch it at all.
Oh, I'm not either, but I might. I may end up tuning in just to see what kind of train wreck TV they're going to put on us. But I still don't think that it's like I said last week or 2 weeks ago now. I can't remember. It's going to be them battling a stairway because what's the point of going into all the floors?
Yeah.
It's really dumb.
it's a dumb idea. It's not unless, like you said, they put up like an obstacle course where they can't go up the stairway anymore because it's blocked off or whatever.
Right.
But there too, it's a smart idea to have both the women's and the men's going on at the same time, because it's once you see it, you've seen it. There, you don't want to watch it again. The only thing I hope, is that one or the other wins it first. Like, say Alexa Bliss takes down, and I don't know if she's in the match. I don't really care who's in the matches, but let's just say Alexa Bliss takes down the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, and the men are still fighting like 2 floors down, and Mandy Rose goes after the men's match, or Nia Jax or somebody goes after the men's contract. I think that would be kind of an interesting finish. And
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Mandy Rose because I was going to say that, and I again, like you, I don't know the participants, but if Dozerman is in the men's Money in the Bank ladder match, I think it'd be great if he, if he helped Mandy Rose win the women's one instead of actually trying to win the men's one.
Are you hungry?
No, I just ate, but thanks for asking.
I can't hear you. Do you want the applesauce? Sorry, I've got a hungry child. Let me guess, a fruit snack? No? What do you want?
Oh, so Otis is in the men's match, but Mandy Rose is not in the women's match. That's disappointing. I think that would have been a really cool and a really sweet thing for them to do, is if Otis just was close to winning the men's match, but then he abandoned it to help Mandy win the women's one.
That would have fit their storyline really, really well.
Yeah, I don't know why they're not doing that. That would have been really awesome. But she's not. But the women in the match are Asuka, Shayna, Nia, Dana Brooke, Lacey Evans, and Carmella.
What I would like to see is I would like to see like
Well, I'm not going to see any of that. So.
But if I were to watch it, we don't need to, Arlo. It's fine. Sorry, my week has been hell this week, as you guys can tell. Hopefully he'll be asleep by 9 o'clock tomorrow night. Anyway, so I just think if they're going to do it simultaneously, a storyline like that would be great, where the women that don't win the women's match, like the women get up there quick first because they're faster and blah blah whatever. But to see the women win the match first and then have the remaining women battle with the men for the rights to the other one, I think would be a great way to finish that match.
I wonder how close the ladders are going to be to each other, because I wonder if there's like a possibility of like one ladder getting knocked down and then knocking the other, like say like a woman's about to win the match, but the men's ladder gets knocked down, so it knocks them off the ladder.
That would be kind of cool too. I don't know. I'm actually, let's stop talking about this, because the more we're talking about, the more I want to watch it, just to see what kind of train wreck bullshit is going to happen.
Well, I've already committed to not watching any WWE ever again. So
you've done that.
Now that does not hold true for the past events. I did actually watch. I'm actually listening along to WWF The Legacy Series, so I did watch a Saturday Night's Main Event from 1987 earlier today.
It's funny because I watched more 80s Saturday Night's Main Event and Wrestling Superstars over the last week, because we talked about that last week about how they should do the logos. Did you see what I was talking about the logos and the promos on the way to the ring and all that stuff?
I already knew what you were talking about, man. I lived through that time.
Right, but it was a lot more than I remember it being.
Okay.
Like, I remember it just being the Superstars when I first thought of the idea, but then when I was watching back, it's like the jobbers had logos too.
Yeah, I watched the Mega Powers form, so.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I watched the Hart Foundation beat the Young Stallions in the last match of Saturday Night's Main Event. It's hard to call it the main event, even though it happened last, but that's how the Saturday Night's Main Events were structured a lot of the times.
Oh, the
But
young stallions.
but to see the Hart
Wow.
Foundation as heels actually win a match without cheating was pretty awesome.
Tom Zank, was that Tom Zank and Rick Martel? No, not Rick
No, that's the
Martel.
Can Am connection you're thinking of. This was Jim Powers and Paul Roma.
Okay, yep. Wow. Which one was the one that Steamboat was a part of? Or not Steamboat, oh, Strike Force.
Tito Santana was Strikeforce and Rick Martel.
Yeah. Man, so many great tag teams back then.
Yeah, there really were. Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if Demolition's even debuted at the one at the point I was watching at today.
Well, they debuted in '88, so if you watched '87, you didn't. It was after the Mega Powers exploded.
Okay, I couldn't remember. And I know that I know when they win the championships at WrestleMania in '88, but I didn't
Yep.
know when they actually came to the company.
Because they beat the Hart Foundation at WrestleMania 4 to win the championship.
Who did?
Demolition.
No, Strikeforce beat the Hart Foundation. Demolition beat Strikeforce.
Okay, so Strike Force must have won that at WrestleMania 4.
No, Demolition beat Strikeforce at WrestleMania 4.
Well, now I'm all confused.
The Hart Foundation are in the Battle Royal WrestleMania 4.
Oh, that's right. Yep. And that was when, uh, what's his name? Bad News Brown turned his
Double
back
cross the
on.
Hitman.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right. The fact that I even remembered Bad News Brown gives me a couple of nods on the. I'm gonna stop
What's kind of
talking.
funny that at both WrestleMania 2 and WrestleMania 4, Bret Hart was the last man to be eliminated in a Battle Royal before the eventual winner.
Nice.
Because I think Andre won the Battle Royal at WrestleMania 2, and then Bad News won it at WrestleMania 4, but Bret was the last one eliminated in both of them.
All I know is I want to go back and start watching all the WrestleManias.
Well, I think next I'm not exactly sure the date of the next Saturday Night's main event, so it might be it's either like right before or right after Survivor Series, the very first Survivor Series. So
Well, maybe after we finish the Sinclair era and our ECW that we started and never finished, maybe we might want to take a look at WrestleManias because I wouldn't mind going back and watching some of those, especially some of the ones from the '80s, '90s.
before we do the Impact years,
Oh fuck, that's right. We're doing the Asylum years too. Wow, we have so much to do.
I know.
Guys, you are going to be listening to us talk for years at this point. Just on the content we want to do, not on the new stuff that's coming up.
Yeah, you'll probably hear us by the time we finish. I might even be living in Nashville. Who knows?
And we're going to be on like COVID 75 at that point.
Okay, so November 26, 87 was Survivor Series. Let me see when that Saturday Night's main event is.
It's riveting radio, guys. Riveting.
I covered for you. Why aren't you talking while I'm doing this?
Because I'm not that kind of guy.
Okay, so November 28th of 87 is the Saturday Night's main event. What did I say the other one was? November
I don't know,
27th?
something 87. If it was Survivor
You're very
Series,
helpful,
if it was Survivor
dumbass.
Series, it would be the end of November. Because they
I know,
used.
I'm trying to see which one is before the other.
When was
But I think
Saturday
Survivor
Night's
Series
main
takes
event?
place first is with the way this is shaping up.
When was Saturday Night's main event?
November 28th of 87.
Well, that would have been a Saturday. So
And Survivor Series is November 26th of 87. So, yeah, so 2 days after Thanksgiving. That's kind of weird they did it that way, isn't it?
kind of, yeah, because that's two like. I mean, that's the pay per view, and then that's a fairly large quarterly show done within 2 days of each other.
Oh, I know why that happened that way. Because Saturday
Because
Night's main event was all planned out. They already had it all scheduled out through NBC. But Survivor Series they put together at the last kind of last minute to compete against on the same night as Starrcade.
that's right, they both used to be on Thanksgiving night.
Yeah.
That was you watched the two afternoon or the early and late football games, and then you tuned to wrestling for Starrcade, and then Survivor Series came out. So, man, I miss Thanksgiving Day wrestling. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, me too. I think it's silly that Survivor Series isn't on Thanksgiving anymore, but
Well,
you
we
do.
gotta have Sunday when we can get the most people to view in, or to most views possible, because they don't have to get up for work. And
Yeah, but MLW came to the rescue last year. Remember?
yeah, thank God, and they had a fairly decent show, didn't they? If I
They did.
remember right.
Yeah, I think that was the one where it had. Wasn't that the one where the world title was defended against the Von Erich brother?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
when Filthy Tom turned his back.
Yep. And nobody could ever see that coming.
No, no. I mean, that wasn't one of the worst laid heel turns I've ever seen. Right down to the promo beforehand saying how great Gary, or what's his Von Erich name was, Ross. Yeah. Anyway, we got a few minutes left, so want to do another Mount Rushmore?
Yeah. What do you want to do?
Tag teams. I'm going tag teams this time.
All right.
And I'm thinking, the decade thing was fun. Actually, I wouldn't mind doing like we did last week, where we do one just kind of an all-time greatest to us, and then one kind of a decade tag team.
All right. So, do we want to go all at once, or do we want to do back and forth?
Just do all at once. Do your
All right.
greatest. We'll discuss a greatest one, then we'll go with a decades one.
Okay. So I'll go Young Bucks. Young Bucks are my all-time favorite tag team. So I think they're the greatest tag team of all time. Um, I think they're just amazing. So um, number and also my top four would be the Dudley Boys / Team 3D, whatever you want to call them. I think they're also amazing. And they had multiple tag team title reigns at every promotion they were ever in. I mean, I think it's tough to, and they were top draws in all those promotions too. So helped establish the TLC match, all that stuff.
I can't disagree with either one of those. Dudleys aren't in my top five. Young Bucks definitely are. I mean, but the Dudleys aren't going to be.
Interesting. Okay. Um,
Because I'm also looking at this not just as, who I think. Because if we went, oh, these are the greatest, that's no fun. Everybody does that. So I'm looking more at like who are our greatest. Like who is the greatest to you specifically.
Yeah.
And that's why the Dudleys don't make my list.
I didn't appreciate this team enough, I think, when I was actually watching them as they were coming up, because I did kind of see them from the beginning of their time, and I still watch them today. But now that we're going back and watching Ring of Honor again, I'm appreciating them more. I appreciate them for everything they do today. So the Dudley Boys are going to be in there, and I'm trying to think who else. Who else would I have in my top four? My favorite tag teams of all time.
Well, while you're
I know I had Steve Austin in there last week, but I have to go with the Hollywood Blondes.
Yeah, it's not a bad one either. They were really integral to WCW. Well, NWA. No, WCW.
WCW.
Well, you're thinking of your last ones. Let me run down mine.
I gave you four.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I gave you four already.
You gave me three.
No, I gave you the Young Bucks, the Dudleys,
Hollywood Blondes, and that's all I
the
heard.
Blondes, and the Briscoes.
Oh, you did say the Briscoes. Okay, I didn't hear that. I heard you talking Ring of Honor, but I didn't actually hear a name.
You know what? I'm gonna take off the Hollywood Blondes and put in the Hart Foundation instead.
Okay, yeah, and that's where I was gonna go. That's my number one all-time Hart Foundation. Outside of Randy Savage, watching the Hart Foundation, especially when it was the original trio, Hitman, Anvil, and Jimmy Hart, that's what got me into wrestling. So my ultimate number one tag team of all time is the Hart Foundation. Um, After that, the Young Bucks are a close second. Especially over the last maybe 2 to 3 years, the Young Bucks have really kind of stolen my heart as far as tag team wrestling goes.
Hmm.
The Revival is up there as probably my number three, just because I don't know that I've ever seen another tag team that has captured me the way that they are. And people always want to say, well, this team is better, this team is better, but when you look at the fact that the Revival, especially in NXT, and we're going to see what kind of great shit they can do now, wherever they land. But the fact that they
Yeah,
were
I have a hard time putting the Revolt in there just because it's been years since we've seen them. We didn't see them for very long, and we didn't get a chance to really see what they could do for the long haul.
but they did such great work against.
In such a narrow window, though. That's my point.
I think we saw glimpses of it in some of their short matches in WWE. I guess it'll. I think I'm kind of looking more towards, and believe me, this is a hard list because especially when you look at the '80s tag teams, I don't know that there was anything better. But my fourth pick is tough because as much as I want to give the Briscoes their love, as much as I want to give, some of these other tag teams love, I really have to go Demolition as my number four. They were so dominant for such a long period of time. And I guess it wasn't really that long. It was maybe 4 or 5 years, but they were so dominant that it's hard not to. Oh man, you know what? I'm going to recant my last two because they just hit me out of the blue. The Midnight Rockers, who got me into wrestling to begin with. The AWA, watching Shawn Michaels and the Midnight Rockers. And their battles against the Road Warriors. That's my 3 and 4. So
I was really surprised you didn't have the Road Warriors in your top four. So
So
I'm glad you recanted and brought them in there.
my
And especially when you had Demolition, which
was
Demolition would never have existed if Vince had been able to get the Road Warriors in the first place.
exactly. So I mean, my four, the Hart Foundation, the Bucks, the Midnight Rockers, and I'm talking the Midnight Rockers, not that crappy Rockers experience that was in WWE. I'm talking the Midnight Rockers,
Hmm.
and the Road Warriors. That's my four.
Yeah, I mean, and there's guys that we left out, like the Hardys, Edge and Christian,
And believe me, it's hard to leave out Edge and Christian. Really
Blanchard and
hard.
Anderson. You know,
Yeah, but which Blanchard and Anderson? Were they better in as the Brainbusters or when they were in the NWA?
um, I think you're always better with Bobby Heenan by your side. So,
That's a good point. That's a good point. But
as
that,
an
I mean,
actual tag team, I think they were better in the NWA. But just because Bobby Heenan being out there with them, I think they were better in the WWF.
well, and when you look at tag times throughout the years, there's so many great ones. We another one we forgot about was the American Males, or not American Males. Uh,
What?
the ones from TNA, Chris Harris and James Storm.
Oh, America's Most Wanted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's another tag team that we forgot about. And then you had some other great tag teams, Motor City Machine Guns. Where would they fall on the list like this? I would definitely think they'd be, in the top 10 somewhere. And then you look at
And the Outsiders too. You have to consider the
Yep,
Outsiders as
the
well.
Outsiders, Aftershock is another one, or Future Shock, I'm sorry, is another one. There's so many great tag teams throughout the years that this is really, really a tough list. But if I had to pick and narrow it down, I feel pretty confident with my top four.
Yeah, and see, I had to have the W's in mind because they were I loved them so much in ECW. They were a more tamped down version with the WWF, but I still enjoyed them there. And then when they went to TNA, they were fantastic. So
See,
I,
for me in ECW, it wasn't just Devon Bubba. It was the whole family. So it wasn't, I never really pictured, yeah, they were the two main guys, but ultimately, the Dudley Boys came across as a family for me. Once they hit
Yeah.
WWF, I felt like both the Hardys and Edge and Christian, especially Edge and Christian, when they hit their ENC Team Eck 5 second pose phase, there was nobody in WWE better than them at the time. Hardys put on some great matches. I mean, you could have looked at a dozen tag teams during that time, but ultimately, I think ENC was probably the best at the time.
And speaking of ECW tag teams, I would be remiss in not mentioning the Public Enemy.
Oof.
The Public Enemy were the main event for ECW for the first couple years of their existence. ECW may not have succeeded if it wasn't for the Public Enemy.
Yeah, and it's such a shame what they did to them in WCW.
Hmm.
It really is, because they were so talented. They were so good at drawing heat. They were a comedy act, but a comedy act that you could believe could kick your ass. That's such a great tag team. There's so many great tag teams. It's really hard to pick one, to be honest with you.
And honestly, like over the years, just hearing about the team, I am very sad that I never got a chance to see the team of Ric Flair and Greg Valentine in their prime.
Get down.
I
No,
really would have enjoyed
no.
seeing those two team up as a heel, bloody bastard of a tag team.
And that's another tag team that actually was really good that really is underrated because one of them was not a great wrestler and really picked a couple of bad gimmicks afterwards. Well,
The
every
Dream
gimmick,
Team.
every gimmick afterwards. Yeah, the Dream Team. As a tag team, those two were great together. But once Beefcake broke off and became the Barber, and then went to WCW and was literally the man of a thousand names, did that kind of taint that tag team? Because when you had, was it Freddie Blassie who was their manager?
I thought it was Jimmy Hart.
No, no, it was. I know. Oh no, no, it wasn't. It wasn't Freddie Blassie. It wasn't Jimmy Hart. It was somebody else. I can't remember his name. It'll come
I
to
was
me.
almost certain it was Jimmy Hart that was with them at WrestleMania 3.
No, Jimmy Hart was part of the Hart Foundation, dude.
He couldn't do both.
No.
Was it Jimmy Valiant?
Yep, that's who it was.
Okay.
You had Jimmy Valiant, then you had Greg Valentine, and then Brutus Beefcake, who I thought really complimented them. I thought I thought they were a great tag team.
All right. So I went first in this discussion. So what about your teams of the decades?
For the decades, well, I'm gonna go in reverse because I think the '80s are probably the hardest. I think in 2010s you've got to go Young Bucks. 2000s it's ENC, Edge and Christian. I mean, they only had a good 2 or 3 year run in the beginning, but I think their 2 or 3 year run really outshone everybody else. Um, in the '90s, oh God, the '90s were so bad. You'd have to go with the Hollywood Blondes, I think. And then the 2000s, I mean, well, since Heart Foundation was my number one of all time, they've got to be the number one of the '80s.
Okay. So for the 80s, I think it's got to be the Hart Foundation. For the 90s, I think it's actually a team we have not mentioned yet, and that's the New Age Outlaws.
Oh, how do we not mention them considering he's one of my top five all time in the WWF?
I don't know, but I think that they've got to be the team in the 90s. If it's not them, it's got to be the Outsiders. I mean, it's one of those two teams to me in the 90s.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, the
in the
Hollywood Blondes had a great
2000s,
run, but you're right, nowhere near as good as those two.
yeah, in the 2000s again, just because they were in every promotion, I'm going to go with the Dudleys. Um, and they dominated every promotion in the 2000s. Um,
Harlow, get off the
and
back of the chair.
and in the 2010s, it's got to be the Young Bucks. There's no question to me.
Yeah, in the 2010s, especially the second half. I mean, they kind of took. Well, no, I mean they were. Yeah, I mean, they came into TNA in end of 2009. They ended up being champions in TNA in 2010, and then they went to Ring of Honor where they really honed their craft. So yeah, I mean, there's no question the Young Bucks are the team of the tens because they're 10 years
Yeah.
deep in this and they're still on top.
Yeah, I mean,
I
at one point in the 2010s, they held the PWG World Tag Team titles, the ROH World Tag Team titles, the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championships, and the Super Kick Party Championships of the world.
and the TNA titles.
I know, but I say at the same time.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
They held all four of those belts at the same time, including the Super Kick Party Tag Team Championships.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't get past that. That's like the ultimate, right there. Didn't somebody win those Super Kick titles from them? I thought that was a storyline at one point in Ring of Honor.
Not that I remember, but it's possible.
I will get there at some point, I'm sure, because we're doing the Ring of Honor stuff. But yeah, I don't know.
And just I know this is a Mount Rushmore thing, but so far we're now in I would say though that I think the Undisputed Era really made a push towards the end of the 2010s. Red Dragon to be the team of the 2010s.
You could make an argument for Red Dragon because I think Red Dragon has really been going strong since 2013. But I don't think that.
Yeah, and they held they also held all the same titles except for the TNA titles that the Bucks did. Plus, they were 2-time NXT Tag Team Champions.
But they were never that until NXT. They were never that top draw. Where the Bucks you could have thrown into a main event, you never could have done that with Red Dragon and sold.
Unless they were against the Bucks.
Exactly. So it's like, I mean, I would love to say yes because I think they're two of the most talented wrestlers on the planet, especially as a tag team. But ultimately, when you look at the fact that you could have thrown the Young Bucks in a main event and sold, you never could have done that if Red Dragon main evented. It just wouldn't have happened.
That's very true. Yeah.
And the 90s, the 2000s and the 90s are probably the two toughest eras because you had Motor City Machine Guns who pretty much wrote the book on tag team wrestling, especially in the late 2000s. And then to start the era, you had Edge and Christian, but you also had like Paul London and what's his name?
Brian Kendrick.
Brian Kendrick were a strong tag team for 3-4 years in there. You had some really good tag teams in the 2000s. So I mean, I'm not.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's probably people that are listening to this screaming, "No, the New Day were the tag team of the 2010s," or
fuck that, no.
Or the Usos were the tag team of the 2010s. But no, it is the Young Bucks.
I would hear an argument. I would sit down and legitimately hear an argument for the Usos, but not the New Day. The New Day were a marketing machine. The New Day were a great trio, but I would never put them as a tag team of the 2000s.
Yeah, me neither.
You want to talk trios, maybe even factions? I would throw them in there. You want to talk about who are the best marketers of the 2010s? I would throw them in there, but not when it comes to tag teams.
They actually were recently named the top WWE faction of all time.
What?
The New Day were recently named by WWE.com as the greatest WWE faction of all time.
I will never go to WWE.com again. Period. End of story. You can't tell me ever that the New Day is a better faction than DX or the Nation or the Hart Foundation or, well, I guess those three.
The Shield?
God damn, the Shield were great too. They're not even the best faction of the 2010s.
No, they're not.
When you think about it, because the Shield were, what, 12 to 14? The Wyatt family, I would say.
If you look at it objectively, I think the Shield has to be the greatest faction of all time in the WWE.
I think
because every single member of that faction has been a top draw for the company.
Even if you look at just the faction while they were a faction, I think you could make that argument because they went undefeated for over a year and a half.
Yeah, something like that.
You know, while they were undefeated, they were the tag team champions, and they had the U.S. title. Dean Ambrose had a record-setting run as the U.S. title holder while a member of that faction. They were legitimately scary, but I don't know if I could say they were the top faction of all time. I'll give them the top of the two. That well, remember the Nexus before John Cena buried him?
No, you
And
can't say before John Cena buried them because he buried them when they first right when they were getting off the ground.
well, yeah, but they were really strong for that first year before Cena really got
It
involved,
wasn't a year, man. It was like a few months.
wasn't it? I thought it was longer than
No.
that. All right, yeah. So you got to go with the Shield with the 2000s or 2010s. But would you really say they were better than Legacy, or
Yes.
better than uh, Evolution?
Yes.
You would say the Shield were better than Evolution. Evolution at one time held every title on Raw.
Yeah, for like a month.
They still held them all at the same time. Evolution had three members that were world heavyweight title holders while they were members of Evolution.
Evolution was just the WWS version of a ripoff of
Of the
the Four
Horsemen.
Horsemen, whereas the Shield was completely an original idea.
But see, where Evolution, they may, yes, they were the ripoff, but even the Horsemen couldn't hold claim to the fact that not only did they hold every title, but they had three distinct members hold the world title while members of the group. The Four Horsemen never had that. The only member of the Horsemen ran from 84 to 98, and they never had
Wait.
any.
Batista didn't hold the world title while being a member of the group.
He challenged Triple H, but he was never officially ousted from the group until he left for SmackDown. So he was technically still an Evolution member while the World Heavyweight title holder.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I looked it
Okay.
up one I looked it up one time. He was never officially ousted from the group. The group disbanded when he moved to SmackDown.
And Randy Orton was ousted from the group the night after he won the championship.
But he was still a title holder while a member.
You are getting into super technicalities here, my friend.
It's the truth. I mean, it's not a technicality. It's the flat out truth. He was still a member of Evolution the night he won the title. They celebrated with him and then turned on him. So he was an official member of Evolution. I mean, the Batista thing.
But I think most people would say that the night that Batista power bombed Triple H through the table, Evolution was done.
Oh yeah, I mean, and you could make that argument, but even regardless, they're still the only faction to have two. Well, NWO I guess did too, because they had technically three world heavyweight title holders with Nash and Savage and Hogan. But ultimately, I mean, you could make the argument that
And the Giant, right?
The Giant was never a member never a world title holder while a member of the New World Order.
Okay.
He lost the belt to Hogan, then 3 months later joined, and then when he challenged Hogan for the belt again, he got kicked out.
Okay. I was trying to think. But other guys that were members of the NWO World. Now, they weren't all together at the time, but Bret Hart was world champion as member of the NWO. So was Jeff Jarrett.
Were they? Yeah, but that didn't really count because that was some ridiculous. The only real member still part of the NWO was Kevin Nash, and
It depends. Yeah, but they're still members of the NWO as world champion.
I can't get behind that. Sorry.
I don't remember Scott Steiner, and it's possible Scott Steiner was, although I don't think so.
All right, legitimate faction members. I still think of because I'm not going to count NWO 2000 as a legitimate NWO faction. I'm also not going to count the Wolfpack as a legitimate NWO faction.
Okay, so now you're just splitting hairs.
When we're talking NWO, that'd be like saying the Four Horsemen and the Four Horsemen Light were all the same faction.
What are the Four Horsemen Light?
Heenan family.
Oh no, they're not. That wouldn't be the same thing because they didn't have the same name.
No, but they had.
They didn't have the same branding.
And technically, they didn't have the same branding. If you want to look at it, Wolfpack's not the same as the NWO. It was a red and white.
Yeah, but the NWO that Bret Hart was the world champion of was still called the NWO.
Except for the fact that they put the 2000 after it, which completely negated it.
Did they? Did they really?
Yeah, it's officially known as NWO 2000.
Okay. Wow, this conversation kind of went sideways.
Look at all the random discussions we can get into about wrestling and just enjoy ourselves.
Yeah, indeed.
All right, guys. I've had enough for the night, and it's not that I don't love you, but I've got a child who needs to go to sleep. So, look us up on. If you're listening to us on YouTube, we appreciate it. I'm still working on trying to fix the sound. Hopefully, I did. If I didn't, it'll be worked on again tomorrow. But make sure you give us a like. Hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell. We do appreciate it, and look forward to bringing you more content, which we do at least twice a week live on YouTube. Also, our Patreon, patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor. Put up a live Patreon or not a live, but a Patreon exclusive show last week where we broke down. Which one was it? It was Death Before Dishonor 2011.
Yep.
And of course, look us up on Twitter. I'm at Regi Co-op. He is at ZanmanLOP. And you can reach us faster by using the hashtag DAD or the hashtag KOH.
And make sure you stay tuned to all the other LOP radio shows here on LOP Radio. Like I just said, wow. Next week, Jeff, I think we haven't really talked about what we're going to do next week, but are we doing Bound for Glory 2005?
It's my plan.
Okay. All right, so Bound for Glory 2005 for next week. Also, hopefully we'll do Final Battle 2011 and wrap up 2011 for Ring of Honor next Tuesday for our Patreon show. Tomorrow night, MCLOP Radio Adventure here on Words of Pain Radio. On Friday, like I mentioned, the guys, the Mystic and Ms. Fan, are going through the WWF The Legacy Series. They're in 1987 now, so I think their next event coming up is going to be Survivor Series 1987. So the very first Survivor Series on the same night as Starrcade 80s. So, that's all we've got. We'll try to do better next time. This is Shane saying long days, pleasant nights, and Jeff saying
goodbye.